All right, so I don't know about you, but now I'm starting to clear up. The fog is starting to lift from my eyes, and I feel like I know a little bit more about what's going on now in WandaVision. This was a great episode because it brought us into modern day, and now we're able to look really from the inside out as to what's going on with Wanda. So now we're clear, right, that we know that Wanda is really controlling this. But we also know from this episode that there are some other things going on here. Wanda might be in control of what's going on here, but there is some kind of invasive or outside force that also has some sway over this world that Wanda has constructed. And we don't quite know who that is yet. But before we get into that, I got a little bit ahead of myself. Let's talk about the technicals of this again. Because again, this was a great episode. And what I like here is that they capture everything consistently within the time that they're in. So when we're in present day, it looks like present day. And what's fascinating about this episode is when we got the flashbacks to present day at some of the previous episodes, and they would show like the people watching Wanda on the TV screens. Initially, I thought, well, wait a minute, wait. Something's wrong here, because if they introduce Sword into Wanda's reality warping, Sword was not around from what I remember in the 1960s or whatever. And when they would show us these images of what's going on with Wanda on these old TV sets, I was like, this doesn't make any sense, because if this is what we're getting, this is what we're seeing outside of Wanda's world, how is Sword around at that time? They weren't around at that time from what we know of, but now we see from the context of this episode that they were watching those old TVs because that was a way that they could actually have some insight into the world that Wanda had built. So those things were answered for me. I was happy about that. I think that visually this was awesome. I love the consistency that we see here when we are looking at Wanda and she's reality warping throughout the different years. It looks consistent with what it would look like at that time, and it also looks consistent with what they give us in present day. I thought it was really awesome how they started this episode, right? Kind of giving us the results of the reverse snap. This is a snap that Tony did, and we see those folks being brought back, and Rambeau is one of those folks being brought back. Now, also, I'm excited about this because it seems to solidify the fact that we will have her in the MCU. And this is what I mean, man, when I say, like, you should be excited about the stuff that's coming out on Disney Plus, because it totally gives so much that you can do with characters and bringing them into the MCU, and you don't have to spend all of that energy introducing them in a movie. You can do it through these shows, and we get to know them, and then you can put them in the movies, and as they intermingle these shows with what we get on Disney Plus, I'm telling you, I think the sky's the limit, man. I think the sky's the limit for what Disney can do. People talk about superhero fatigue and superhero saturation, but I don't really believe in it. I believe that if you get a good story, a story uniquely told, like what we get with WandaVision, I think the longevity for something like this is almost infinite, as long as you tell a good story. And I think that's what we're getting from WandaVision. So this is really cool about what's going on here. So now we do get the establishment of Monica Rambeau, and I'm pretty sure what this means is that this is a setup for her being in the MCU. Now the question is, will they also keep Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, because we do know that Monica Rambeau dons the title of Captain Marvel as well. So we got to see what's going on there. And I'm wondering if there's going to be a tie-in with Monica Rambeau and also what we get with the New Mutants as well. So we got to see how all of that stuff works out. So anyway, we'll see. I'm excited about all that. But I thought this was a really good episode. I thought that we got a lot explained. We do know at this point, I said New Mutants, I meant Inhumans. You guys know what I mean. I meant Inhumans. But we do know at this point that Wanda is controlling everything. We get that bit of information from this episode. But there is still something going on in this episode that we're not quite sure of. There might be some theories going on around. There is someone or some force inside Wanda's reality that is either able to resist her reality warping, or that has some way of persuading or controlling what's going on in her warping of reality that's outside of her. Now, is this Mephisto? I don't know. At this point, I'm kind of leaning towards Agnes. I think that Agnes might be doing some things here to try and break Wanda from this reality. So when we get scenes like Vision coming back in the house and we see him as he was actually killed in Endgame, those are all attempts, I think, of Agnes to kind of break this reality that Wanda has created and bring her back to the real world. So it's fascinating to see who's doing all this, but somebody's playing around in there that's outside of Wanda. And Wanda's having a hard time holding on to her grip of everything. So we get a lot in this episode. We get a lot of explanations from the past 3 episodes, which I feel like is right on point, right? Like nobody wants to wonder what's going on from episode 1 when we're like at episode 8 and almost done with the season of WandaVision. Like nobody wants to know, nobody wants to be wondering at that point. We wanted some answers, and I feel like now they're starting to roll some answers out. So I really enjoyed this episode of WandaVision. I'm wondering how you all feel about it. I'm wondering for the folks that continue to watch it but still felt it was lackluster. I know, like T, if you're watching this, I know that you said you didn't really enjoy the show, but you thought it was interesting enough. I'm wondering now, has things changed for you? Like, how do you feel about WandaVision now? I think it's fantastic. And I'm really excited about what's to come going forward with WandaVision, how they weave it into the MCU. There's just so much potential of the things that can be brought into the MCU, especially with the magical element that you can do through WandaVision, and that we probably will see in the Multiverse of Madness with Doctor Strange as well. So I was crazy excited about this episode. Very, very excited about this episode. Guys, thanks for checking us out. I am going to be putting up a review for The Little Things with Denzel Washington, Jared Leto, and Rami Malek, and I'll share my thoughts with you on that as well. Thanks for watching. Peace.